Not everyone is rich enough to enjoy the finer things of life, but that has never stopped some broke folks from flexing with a $1,200 bottle of champagne, a $10,000 Rolex, or even a $200,000 Lamborghini. These are ridiculously expensive things broke people buy to look rich. Trust me, you never want to make decisions like these people. I don't know about you, but crazy expensive diamond necklaces don't make sense when you're not a crazy rich athlete or a successful musician. But that didn't stop a rapper named Young Buck from doing the most ridiculous thing you could imagine. Even though Young Buck was signed to the same label as 50 Cent, his career didn't take off like other G-Unit rappers. Young Buck's songs barely got any traction online, and the guys at G-Unit realized he wasn't going to be a massive hit with the fans. You would think someone like that would know a thing or two about spending money wisely, but Buck had other ideas about his superstar status, and he needed fancy cars and chains to prove a point. Young Buck went all out on a $20,000 chain and pendant with the number 615 in the largest pendant fonts you've ever seen. He was on top of the world with his crazy custom chain, but it wasn't long before the IRS came knocking for their cut of the cake. And let's just say Young Buck was caught lacking. Young Buck might not be the smartest guy around, but he is nowhere near the person with the dumbest idea to look rich. Remember the time rapper Uzi Vert slapped a $24 million pink diamond to his head? Well, most fans thought it sounded too stupid to be true. So when it turned out to be true, Uzi Vert was given the shock of his life. After Uzi did a dive bomb on his fans, someone in the crowd ripped the pink diamond off his forehead, and he was left with a crazy headache. Now that's terrible decision making. If you don't want to end up like the people in the video, you might want to subscribe to the channel because it's completely free and you don't need to pretend to be rich to join in on the fun. You might think billionaires like Jeff Bezos and Mark Zuckerberg would be going around rocking the craziest jewelry ever made since they have massive bank accounts, but they barely wear any. On the other hand of the spectrum, we have broke people who barely have enough to survive, but feel like they need to max out their credit cards to look richer than they are. Expensive jewelry is one thing, but if there's anything stupider than unaffordable jewelry, it's going all out for luxury brands. Like the time Floyd Mayweather went on a massive shopping spree in Johannesburg, South Africa. Floyd might be one of the richest boxers alive, but it still turned heads when he spent $7 million on designer clothes in a Gucci store. That's more money than most people will ever make in a lifetime, and he just casually dropped it on a Tuesday. Even attempting a quarter of what Floyd Mayweather did in South Africa would put regular people in so much debt it's crazy to even consider. However, a broke woman named Sharon Tirabassi got handed the opportunity of a lifetime after she won $7.6 million back in 2004. And no one could have expected what happened next. Once Sharon got her hands on the check, it was all about splurging on the most expensive things you could imagine. Even though she spent lavishly on family and friends, a huge chunk of her money went to buying crazy expensive designer clothes from brands like Gucci and Chanel. We don't know what it is with women and $10,000 designer bags, but Sharon Tirabassi had to own a few. And once you get addicted to stuff like that, there is no going back. Unlike Floyd, who still has a few ways to make a few million a night, Sharon wasn't so lucky. Her winnings dried up overnight, and before you know it, she was back to taking double shifts to even afford rent. We don't know why people who get rich overnight always get carried away with the influx of cash. Maybe it has something to do with wanting to live like the elite who do things that make them feel almost untouchable. Only an untouchable person would think of owning a yacht like this. But what if I told you there are crazy people out there who think they could own something like a super yacht while being broke? Not exactly, but there are loony people out there who max out their credit cards to rent yachts for parties. It can be fun if it's a one-time thing, but once they begin to lie to friends and family that they can afford the yacht, they can't stop. With its $5 million a week price tag, it's easy to see why Bill Gates was the only person rich enough to even attempt to rent the super yacht. Even though yachts are great for pastries on the sea, they don't come anywhere near what you could do with supercars on land. When you have all the money in the world, a $400,000 Lamborghini might be chump change. But when you live paycheck to paycheck, it's a life sentence of paying back your debts. A crypto bro named Benjamin Nelson learned this the hard way when he cashed in his crypto for a Lamborghini Huracan Performante. Benjamin couldn't wait to take it for a test drive, and in no time, he racked up over 20 traffic offenses and just 600 miles driven. That's one major offense every 33 miles, and that was just the beginning. He hit 125 miles per hour in a 70 mile per hour zone, and barely 6 days after, Benjamin crashed the Lambo and reported it stolen. It didn't take much for the cops to figure out that Benjamin lost control of his ride and wrecked it after a wild night out. He tried to look rich by buying a Lamborghini, but he never knew it was going to end up sending him to a 4-year prison sentence. There are a lot of guys like Benjamin out there who feel they can look rich by buying the flashiest car out there, but it hardly ever works. But what's more nuts than spending money you don't have on a brand new Lambo? Going on an expensive vacation without really thinking about how it will wreck your bank account. It might sound crazy that anyone would even try maxing out their credit cards for a lavish vacation. But imagine going for a year-long vacation. A couple of school teachers from Memphis, Tennessee found a way to go on a cruise ship all year. And you wouldn't believe how they made it possible. After watching celebrities live out their dream lives on cruise ships, the couple hatched a plan to hop from ship to ship for 12 whole months. Since they aren't millionaires, they pay off the bill by renting their home to come up with the $10,000 needed to spend 8 months at sea. That's 8 whole months of sipping cocktails on a boat that travels around the world. So it might sound like being in heaven for some people. The only problem here is how they barely get to work while on the cruise ship. Once the rent from their home stops coming in, we won't be surprised if the captain of the ship decides to throw them overboard. After all those months at sea, the best thing they could do was learn how to swim, because they might actually need the skill one day. With how luxury watches like Richard Milles and Rolexes go for crazy prices, you begin to wonder if they're really worth it. Unless you have a couple million sitting in your bank account, you could never afford crazy watches, like the $700,000 Jacob & Co. Caviar Tourbillon, the $500,000 Rolex GMT Master 2, or $300,000 Pateks. But it doesn't matter. The rest of us have to make do with our cheaper alternatives like the Psychos, but that isn't always the case. You could be like an IBM employee from the 1980s who thought it was a good idea to buy a $30,000 Rolex Submariner when his annual salary was just $65,000. Splurging several months' worth of your salary on a watch sounds stupid, but he did it anyway. Even though he got the shiny new watch, Brian had to make a lot of adjustments to survive the next couple months. And he ended up selling the damn watch in the end. All that suffering for something that could be replaced with a Happy Meal watch from McDonald's. Buying a smartphone might not sound like an expense which could put you in debt, but how about phones which cost an arm and a leg? Everyone knows that iPhones can fetch a hefty price, even with financing options out there. But Stuart Hughes's $7.7 million iPhone 4S knocks it out of the ballpark. If you've ever wondered what 500 flawless diamonds look like on an old iPhone 4S, then you're in luck, because Stuart Hughes is the kind of guy to make your dreams come true. It doesn't help that it also includes a rare pink diamond and dinosaur bones from a T-Rex. If that sounds intense, you're beginning to get the message Hughes was trying to pass across, because he even added a few other precious stones like opal and star sunstone. If you thought a piece like this was commissioned by an incredibly wealthy guy like Elon Musk, it should shock you that Stuart Hughes did not have a billionaire in mind when designing the phone. Only someone out of their minds would touch this phone with a 10-foot pole. But a lot of broke people still put themselves in debt by chasing the newest smartphone. You don't have to be one of those suckers who end up chasing the newest shiny phone every year. That's how you end up broke.